Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Poker Showdown, brought to you by PartyPoker. I'm your host, Jaime Staples, and this week we have an awesome guest, a legend of the game on the podcast, but this time, the online poker game. We have Jordan Drummond, the newest member of PartyPoker TeamOnline. Most of you will know him as BBZ. Very successful tournament player, also staking with a big stable, strategy videos, and now streaming on Twitch with a very big channel in a short period of time. So it's fantastic to talk to him and just learn about how he was able to get so much success in such a short period of time in poker, be so successful and make a big impact in a lot of great players' games and helping them improve at this game. So it was awesome to speak with him. But before we get to that interview, let's get into some of the poker news from the past week. Let's talk about some of the results from this past Sunday's poker tournaments. We had Francisco Tomati Benitez claiming the biggest Sunday major prize this past weekend. The player from Uruguay triumphed the PokerStars 5,200 bounty high roller for close to $168,000. Tomati, I remember playing Tomati, tough. Elsewhere, Swedish online poker legend Eisenhower 1 managed to secure himself a Sunday million victory, so a big congrats to him. The result was for $111,669, as well as Eric Bowles of Brazil was heads up but had to settle for $81,103. Obviously, the action on PartyPoker this past Sunday did not go as planned. There were server issues. The lobby started to lag in the middle of the session, and as a result, a bunch of tournaments were canceled from that were already running and refunded as per the terms of service, as well as some of the tournaments that were planned to go ahead had to be canceled as the server was being rebooted. So this really sucked. I was streaming at the time. It was brutal, so I would just like to, on behalf of PartyPoker, again, apologize that everyone had to deal with the server issues on Sunday. It totally sucks. I get it, and we need to step up and be better. And I can promise you guys that people in the company are taking this very seriously and doing everything they can to ensure it is improved for the future. So, again, apologies for that. Kind of spoiled my Sunday, but I'm going to be back out there again this week, and hopefully everything goes smoothly. Now on to some cash game news here. As of Tuesday, Phil Galfond is down almost 1 million euros against Veni Vidi in the first match of his much-publicized Galfond Challenge. The two have completed almost 10,000 hands of the 25,000 hands in this challenge. Now, the stakes are 100 euro, 200 euro blinds, with a side bet of 100K to 200K. Phil Galfond actually put up more money here. So he started the challenge in 2019 against a bunch of different opponents, and the people that have accepted this so far, Bill Perkins, Chance Corneth, Dan Junkelman-Cates, Brandon Adams, and of course Vini Vidi at this point. So I'm a really big fan of Phil Galfond. I think he's great. In fact, I'd love to have him on this podcast at some point if he's not too busy playing heads-up matches. But I mean, this is a really bad start for him. There's a lot of conversation as to, is he just running really bad, or is he really getting crushed here? And like, is he okay? I mean, I have belief in one thing. I think Phil Galfond is a very smart guy. I think he went into this with eyes wide open, and he's sort of planned for the best and the worst outcomes. But it does pain my heart to see. I mean, nothing against Veni Vidi, but Phil Galfond, I think, is a legend in our game, in online poker, and someone that almost everyone can look up to as having done things the right way. Has been incredibly successful on the poker side, on the industry side, and has done it all while staying true to players through and through. So even though we're sort of operating on different sites, I really hope he is successful in his journey with his matches and just in general with his company as well. So I'm hoping for Phil. I hope he can turn it around for the second half of this challenge, the final 1,500 hands or 15,000 hands in this heads-up match. And I'm, of course, looking forward to the other matches that are going to be coming forward. It's been streaming on Twitch, and it's getting a lot of attention, anywhere from 1,000 to 2,500 viewers most days. So fantastic job on that front. And good luck, Phil Galfond. Moving over to some live poker news now, Vince Van Patten is going to be attending the 2.5 million WPT Germany Festival. So he's going to be in town to help promote his film 7 Days to Vegas. A prop bet in the movie entails walking from Los Angeles to Vegas, and Van Patten is now hoping to make a similar bet for his trip to Rosvedov. There's 2.5 million euros offer throughout WPT Germany, which runs from February 9th to 23rd at King's Casino. And the event consolidates Party Poker's sponsorship of top-class international WPT events. Party Poker Live Million South America is underway in Uruguay. The event is just kicking off here this week, but we do have an early winner in the series. The first event winner was an Argentine, Daniel De Grazia, who took down the $200 turbo, banking $2,350 plus a ticket to the mini main event for the victory. Fans can catch all the action of this series live on Poker Go from February 10th, and a bunch of Party Poker pros are going to be there, including Mike Sexton, Dmitry Urbanovic, and Zhao Simao for the event. Roberto Romanello qualified late, currently in the hat for day 3 of the mini main event. So there you go. Ryan Reese going to go, World Series of Poker main event champion. Should be a good time. So looking forward to checking that out on Poker Go, and good luck everyone down in Uruguay. And last up, we have some Party Poker news beside the server issues that we had on Sunday. Some additional news that's hopefully slightly more positive than the issues we had this past week. Let's kick it off with the cash game leaderboards. So 4 Hold'em and 4 PLO leaderboards will pay out a combined $100,000 every week. Leaderboards are split up by buy-in level with individual prizes worth up to $2,000, one per leaderboard. Diamond Club players get their own exclusive leaderboard worth $50,000 in prizes weekly. So that's a pretty big deal. Within the next fortnight, Party Poker will also be launching a daily cash game promotion that will bring the total prizes on offer every week to over $180,000. So if you like cash games, this is the spot to be. Moving on to the KO series now, we're on to tournaments. This is more my speed. I like getting it in there, trying to get a knockout or two, and seeing how I do against fields of thousands of people. We're moving into the second week of the series here, and more than $6 million in prize money is up for grabs. Team Party Poker's Patrick Leonard registered 2 final tables, in the first week of KO series. The Englishman came 5th place in the 300K guaranteed super high roller for just over 18K, but he just narrowly missed the title in the 75K guaranteed battle event, where he finished 2nd place for another $12,000. So Patrick seems to be absolutely crushing it this year. He's got his Discord server that he's working hard on. It's got some really great communities going in there, and he's playing a ton. So I'm really hoping for Patrick this year. He's putting in all the effort, and I think he deserves it. He was, however, pipped to be the first Team Party Poker victory of the series. However, that honor went to Renato Nomura, who took down the $20,000 guaranteed 6-max PLO event for $7,858. So congratulations to Renato Nomura. Always shows up for these series, man. I always see him out there battling. The final day of the series will see players battle for a share of $2.2 million combined on Sunday, February 16th. Now that we're all the way through the news, let's jump into the interview here with Jordan Drummond. Now, Jordan is an incredible figure in the poker world. You just have to ask other elite players about what they think of BBZ, and you'll get testimonials as to how important he has been for this game. Teaching a lot of elite level players how to improve their game. It's no easy feat being able to teach elite level poker players about how to play elite poker. That's difficult to do. The founder of BBZ Staking and BBZ Coaching, and no slump at the game himself, of course, out there on the feld. So incredibly honored to have this conversation. Super lucky to have this guy join our team as well on TeamOnline. Without further ado, Jordan Drummond. This week, joining me on the podcast, I have Jordan Drummond, also known as, more popularly known on the internet as BBZ. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, awesome, man. I'm glad to be here, and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. Like, if you would have told me 3 months ago that I would have been interviewing you as the newest member of TeamOnline, I would have been like, what do you mean? Like, that guy, really? He streams? Like, he's really doing it? It's a surprise to me that you're here, and it's really exciting, I think, for us at Party Poker, but like, just ignore that for a second. For the poker world, to have you creating content like a high-level player, it's I think we're pretty lucky. So I'm pumped about it, man. I have so many things I want to ask you. There's endless avenues, so I'm just going to start with poker specifically, because people want to know how to improve, and you're really well known for this. So what is your sort of poker origin story? How did you find this game and start playing?
Well, I mean, so as far as finding the game, we initially just played kind of like house games. I mean, like, just friends. I guess the same way that a lot of people did, and like, I guess it would have been like 2005-ish, maybe 2006.
Right.
And that was like really casual, not a lot of online stuff.
Just like friends from school and stuff.
Yeah, friends from school and stuff like that. Yeah, and like I did well in those games, so that was cool. So that got me introduced in terms of like knowing how it worked. And then I did a stint where I was playing a lot at the casino when I moved to Canada, and I was just working. I was just at the casino like till late at night, kind of breaking even. But again, like nothing really online. And then I started playing. I started playing online when I was doing door-to-door sales. And
what were you selling?
I was locking people into fixed gas contracts, so fixed price gas contracts, which has been horrible for people because the price of natural gas has just plummeted from like $12 a gigajoule to like it's like I think it's like $2 a gigajoule today.
Right.
So those people are still paying, like the people I like was locking in at a price probably still paying $12 a gigajoule. So yeah, it's been horrible for those people. Okay. But so not super thrilled about that from that perspective. but that's what I was doing, and didn't know it was going to turn out that way. And then I was playing online. I started playing online like around that time, and just like from Go, I just studied a lot. There were training sites at the time, Poker Savvy Plus, SitandGoGrinders.com. Those were like the kind of like the run at once of the era, I guess.
What year are we talking here? Like what?
Now it's like 2000. Now it's like 2008. Now it's like 2008.
Right. That's kind of like when I got into.
When I started to play online, it was like early 08.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like 10 years ago or so, like Deuces Cracked. Yeah. I was a Deuces Cracked guy, but like DC, I respect you over there.
Poker Stocks, like all of those.
Yeah.
Your Stocks Poker, I can't remember like how they said it, but yeah, Card Owners EV, like all of that stuff. And I mean, like I was studying from the beginning. So I started just like watching and consuming tons of content and playing really low stakes, playing free rolls, playing just really low limits, but not playing like full time. I was still working. And then in November of 08 rolled around, and we were doing door-to-door sales, but the guys, like I was living with a group of guys, we all did the same thing. And those guys weren't super motivated when the weather turned over. So like in Canada, Vancouver, like it gets pretty grungy to do door-to-door sales, like in Burnaby or something, like you're hiking up a mountain, there's snow on the ground, you're in a suit, and it's just miserable.
Yeah.
So like rather than do that, we were just staying at home. And so like if we were going to stay at home, I was going to grind. And so I got a buddy send me like $7, and I started with $7, and like kind of the rest is history, so to speak. So just started with $7 playing like 3-cent games.
Yeah.
And just built it into $20, jumped to like $1 games, or built it to $100, jumped to $3 games. And just
it's so wild, man. It's like really crazy looking back at that sort of origin, but there seems to be like a lot of people that have actually gone the same route where they just play free rolls. They're on some training sites, like they love it. They play home games. They're obsessed with it. And then they literally just build it up from like these small amounts to careers. That was my case as well. Sure. Not as much as $7 and not to the level of success you've had either. But I mean, it's so bizarre how that's just like how a generation of poker players seem to get started back in the day.
I mean, that's the kind of, like at least for me, when I was first starting, like that was like the alluring thing, was just to like start with, a very modest amount of risk or whatever we want to think about it, and just kind of like compound the money, and just, you get as much as you can play. The other nice thing about it too, like the two things that I really love about poker are like, well, I mean, now there feels like to me that there's a little bit of a ceiling, but like there's really like no practical ceiling. You can make so much money if you get really good at the game. And then it's very meritocratic, right? Like there's no boss who's like, oh, like because you don't have seniority, so you're not good enough. It's like, no, if you can play high enough and you're good enough, then you just win and you take the money. I mean, like it's just pure in that sense. Like, yeah, there's variance and you have to deal with that. But if you're rolled for the game you're playing, and you're playing like a game where you can handle the volatility, then for sure, it's like I said, it's super meritocratic. Like good players win, and that's great.
Yeah, man. I think it's interesting you call it risk, because I view it sort of the same way. And I'm jumping around a little bit here, but I'm curious how you think about bankroll, because there's a lot of advice for professional players about bankroll and managing your risk and being sure to sort of protect yourself outside of poker, which makes a lot of sense to me, and I have the same sort of advice. But then I think back to like my origin and your origin and my brother Matt's origin, who's the same thing. Like I know maybe 15 or 20 guys that started with less than $100 and it became their career. And none of us followed that advice. So like what's broken in the bankroll management advice of the professional ecosystem? Because everyone says like, oh, you need like 60K in the bank, you need 12 months living expenses, whereas that isn't how it happened. So what's up with that?
Yeah, so I mean, like one of the things I did was like I tried to take my expenses to zero. So like I did move back. I lived in Canada on my own for a while, but I moved back when I was first starting my poker career. When I decided to try to go after it, I moved back in with my parents for like a few months, and then built a bigger roll, and then which was like I don't know 20,000, 30,000, something like that, and then moved out again because I was making like 10K a month when I first started, like fairly quickly. But like I would say that it wasn't a career when I had $7 and it wasn't a career when I was climbing. And I would say that the thing that people miss is that like people view it mostly as like this kind of fixed amount. Like people always like they look at maybe they use PokerDub, which is a popular tool. If you haven't heard of it, PokerDub is a popular tool for like dealing with variance. Okay, so you can plug in some inputs and you can see what's possible, right? And then most people try to reduce like the advice people get is mostly based on reducing the risk of ruin to like close to like a sub 1% possibility. And that's really like miserable as far as that's really miserable as far as advice goes. Like you just like you're going to take some risk that things can go wrong, but you can view it more like algorithmically where, you know, like you can, you have like 30 or 40 buy-ins. And if things go bad, like you move down and you have 30 or 40 buy-ins again. And if things go bad, you move down and you have 30 or 40 buy-ins again. And if like things are going well, you move up and you have like 30 or 40 buy-ins again. And obviously, if you're playing tournaments, that's less true, but I'm referring more like cash games or sit and goes or something. Specifically for tournaments, you know, you would need more, obviously, because 30 or 40 is not enough. But the same principles would apply, which is like, as you lose money, you play lower. And as you win money, you play higher. And you don't need to reduce the risk of ruin to like 0%. It's just, you know, you make it manageable. And then you move up and down somewhat aggressively as like the feedback comes in from whether or not you're winning. So I think a lot of people just like, they want some kind of fixed number that's like really easy. Like, how many buy-ins do I need? And it's like 200. Okay, cool. And then like they go on and like that's it. Yeah. And like that fixed number is just like obviously wrong. Because like what happens when you end up with 100? What happens if you lose and you go from 200 to 100? Like you don't have 200 anymore. You just keep playing until you get all the way down to zero. And like, you know, like it's just bad advice. So you have to readjust. Yeah. For sure. You have to readjust.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So we'll talk about it then a little bit more. We'll get into that aspect a little bit more when we talk about staking later on and sort of your staking business and career. But I want to continue along the poker path here. In your career, what's been your biggest mistake or failure or thing you've learned from along the way to where you are now?
So we're specifically referring to playing, like for playing.
Yeah,
poker,
the
like
playing aspect, not the career side or the business side.
Okay, sure, like all the other stuff. What's the biggest? I don't know. Like, ask the question again. Let me think about it.
Yeah, sure. So just in poker, we're not talking business here or staking or coaching or anything. Like, was there a concept or something that you found really difficult or you constantly made a mistake? Like for some people, it would be like terrible bankroll management, or for some people, like they would have a bad mindset and they'd dust it off towards the end of tournaments or they'd take shots. Like, was there ever that for you, or was it a fairly just like linear progression and you didn't feel that?
Sure. So something that like I struggled with for a long time, like I just couldn't get my head around. I was actually, it's the opposite of a lot of people. I was actually probably too risk averse. Like just, it probably took me, it's almost like the idea, like if you watch the movies and it's like, you know, these fighting movies, like these war movies where they're like, the other guys are men too. And so like, I would look at people playing high stakes and like, I would almost think like those guys aren't human and that like those guys, like I climbed to mid stakes really quickly. So I was able to play like $50 games or $60 games, like, relatively quickly. But breaking into high stakes actually took a friend of mine, Nick Emicus, Frenza. And he was like, dude, they're not that good. And like, you know, there'll be weak players and we can play these games. And I was like, no, man, like that guy, you know, like Asian Tracker, he's just like, he's a beast, dude. Like we can't play with him. He's brilliant. Like, well, no chance. And, you know, or Dombo Main, like these are old names, but yeah. And so he was like, no, man, like we can hang with them. And I was like, I don't think so, man. It took me a long time. To like, I had the money, I could do it. I could afford it. But I was just like risk averse in that sense at like the highest limits of the formats that I was playing.
How did you find out that, like, how did you find out you could hang with them? Did you just play and the results dictated, or did you like start to notice their mistakes? Because I see a little bit of this in me, where I put people on a pedestal sometimes.
Yeah, it was so he helped. So first of all, having this guy like that you're friends with, like chirping in your ear saying like, dude, you can handle it. Like, it's okay. Like, we can play with these dudes. And he's doing it and I'm not. And like, I'm just watching from afar, kind of like, let's see how he handles. Let me see what his results look like. And then also there's like a natural, like blend where like if you're actually playing at like the higher end of mid stakes games, you will occasionally battle with the high stakes regs. Like, you just will. And at the time, yeah, like essentially what starts happening is like you start to notice like that's not like, I don't think that's very good. You know, when Asian Tracker does something at the time, like that's the guy that was the beast at high stakes sitting goes when I was climbing. And like I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right either. This seems pretty wrong. It seems like he's doing these things a lot. Maybe he's not as smart as I think. Maybe my buddy's onto something. Maybe I should like try to flick in some of these games, and then like it kind of snowballs from there.
Right.
But yeah, like the biggest thing was that I was just like almost like petrified. I just thought these guys were like the goats. Like I just thought, you know, I was going to get murdered if I played with these dudes. But yeah, people make mistakes, and you know, you just play the game the best you can, and don't think that like, you know, the other guy across from you can like see your cards and he's going to play perfect. It's just not true.
Right. It's one of the things I really love about your stream. I've spent a lot of time over the last, you know, couple weeks checking out your stream and seeing what's up. Even last night I was watching, and I think you get across these high level concepts in such an approachable way, where it's just like you do humanize the opponents you're playing against better than anyone else, I think, on Twitch. Like I felt myself less intimidated to hop into 1-2 fast forward like you were playing last night when you were working out these spots. I was like, I always think of cash game guys as these GTO robots that like have perfect frequencies on turns and rivers, and like you know, you kind of showcase where they just didn't, and they, you know, they are going to underbluff in these spots because they're human, and that's just how it works in some situations. So I think you do a great job with that. So what about one thing in your career that's led you to your success that you think you do better than anyone else? Like what's your edge or your thing that makes you special compared to other players?
I mean, it's really tempting to say like the thing that pops in my head is work ethic was probably not fair. I do work really hard, and I like have a really deep commitment to studying, and I wouldn't say that differentiates me specifically from other players, but that differentiates a lot of high stakes guys that are like really well known from other guys. So like Ape Styles, for example, comes to mind when I think about people who also have that quality. Like new tools come out and it's like at first it's brutal. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like when you first get to like start wrestling with a new tool, it's like, I mean, I'm not 15 years old. I'm not like, yay, this is really fun. I'm, you know, like the tools that I used before are probably being rendered obsolete, and like I'm probably gonna have to stop using whatever I was doing in the past, and now I have to learn this new thing. And like when you first start using it, maybe you think the software is clunky, the user interface sucks. You're like, is it really worth the time? And like but like, yeah, you have to do it. And so like that's kind of just wrestling with whatever the newest technology is and buying into it is also really important, because I think there's like, when you've been playing for a long time, you have your own opinions about how the game works. And then some tool tells you like all that stuff that you thought was really good, it all sucks. Everything's bad. And you're like, oh my God, like, is this right? I mean, can this really be right? Is this, you know, like particularly like today, what I would equate that to for me right now is like ICM adjusted strategy. We're doing a lot of work inside BBZ there. And a lot of what we see is just like almost antithetical to like how the games are played by everybody at the highest stakes. And it's really hard. I mean, it's really hard. And so like you go through and you're like, and we always, you know, the BBZ way, I guess, is just like you trust that the tools are right. But if the tools are wrong, you're kind of sticking your neck out, because if the tools are wrong, you're going to lose a lot of money because you're going to do something very different from what everybody else is doing.
So these ICM strats, I'm not going to ask you to get like too specific into it, man, but is it closer to Phil Hellmuth? Because this might crack the case as to why he has all the bracelets, man. Is it closer to Hellmuth? Is it tighter?
That's a good question. I mean, I'd have to know how he plays, but I mean, like, it's definitely not like anything that the good players that I know think about how the game works. So to that extent, maybe it's closer to what Phil Hellmuth thinks. I don't know if that's a huge jab, but I mean, like, it's definitely not what I would have been doing like 3 months ago, for example. It's going to look very different.
Yeah. No, it's no jab. I mean, Hellmuth, he's got all the bracelets. He
does win all the time. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, like, and I think people like that, they like the human component of playing in that setting is real, right? And so it's not something that I can take advantage of. I haven't trained myself to do that properly. So
Well, I think you bring up a good point, because, you know, when I do podcasts like this and I talk on Twitch, like my general like, I'm not generally looking to start conversations about the upper echelons of poker and like what it actually takes to solve these spots and like the nitty gritty, because it's scary and it's intimidating, but I think it's also refreshing to see the reality, and instead of hiding the reality, bringing it to the forefront. I think, it's interesting. So I don't even know all of the things going on at the highest stakes, like all the tools and all the work that's being done to try and come to the best answers we can within our ability towards poker. But it's pretty amazing that it's gotten that far from, Deuces card runners days.
It's a hell of an evolution, man. Yeah, I mean, like when I was playing, when I first started playing, it was just like whatever you think makes sense. This guy's tight, I'm going to play loose. This guy's loose, I'm going to play tight. Like that kind of very 1-2 kind of thinking. And yeah, at the highest stakes today, for sure, there's a lot of like, does my computer have enough computing capacity to solve these problems quickly enough, to be relevant? And like, how much does your computer cost? A lot. You know what I mean? And so like, do we have enough guys using servers? Do we need more servers?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like,
this isn't for real time play, by the way.
Figure stuff out. Yeah.
Right.
No, of course not. No. Yeah, this is studying.
Yeah,
this is studying. This is learning.
Yeah.
This is learning how things work. And like, whereas before, for learning how things work, I mean, like, you was just like, if someone's tight, you should play loose. I mean, like, that was great. I mean, and how many tables should you play?
That still works out there on the 1-2 table. That's all you need. That's it.
Yeah. How far things have come in terms of, I mean, it's like everything else though, but like the technology has just changed things, particularly like the upper limits for like what you need to be doing to be like relevant and to be able to compete at high stakes.
So to be forward thinking in that we're human versus human here, we're trying to access the best information possible at the high stakes and solve these big problems that take a lot of simulation power. Where are we going as an industry and as a career? Do we continue down the same path, or is there a way to limit those aspects of the game and focus more on the actual playing parts? How do you think about the future of poker?
Well, so the thing is, like I said, all of the work is felt, right? So I mean, like, it's people who, so like that's difficult unless you constantly there's a lot of innovation around the formatting. So for example, you can do a lot of work on Chippy V play. It's really easy right now with the tools, right? But it's harder, not impossible, but it's harder to do the work on the KO formats. Like that's just much, much, much more challenging. It's slower, the software's clunkier, there's more complexity, there's nuances. Like it's just like the inputs to the programs they haven't been designed for as long. So like the developers haven't worked out as many, kind of like the clunkiness of those programs. I see my guys are doing a great job with it, but there's work to be done. I've got friends that are trying to figure things out, but it's early days, right? And if like as soon as we get things sorted, then the KO format changes to something else, and like on the poker site side, as they innovate around new games, right? Like the longer a game exists for, obviously it's going to get more solved. Like particularly if you have a financial incentive to figure it out. Like if you pay a bunch of guys a bunch of money to sort shit out, like we're gonna figure out how to do it.
Yes.
And if you change it, of course we are. And if you change it on us, like we have to figure out a new one. And so like it's like a reset, right? So this KO format I think has been like kind of democratizes things a bit, and like is like a little bit of a reset button. And to the extent there's another one, like you'll get another reset. And so I think that's one of the things that like if you're trying to say like what can sites do to like make things more small edge for the professional players, and reset things back to a neutral playing ground for the players, that's one of the ways. Innovation around the formatting is for sure one of them.
Right. So I'm a professional just like you, but let's ask the ugly question, which is, as we've seen sites around the internet, not so much Party Poker, but some of the other sites, move away from caring at all about the edge the professionals have and just like focusing purely on their bottom lines. How do you feel about their response to this problem, right? The problem of pros having a big edge, crushing the fish. Some of the sites have just created very high rake games to where they just make money. The pros can't make money, but that's okay. They make more money, and that's okay, right? So what's the incentive for the industry to continue allowing this model of like us pros to be living the dream and then them be able to get the rest? Like, do you see a solution there, or what What do you think?
I mean,
about
like,
it?
to some degree, like I said, there's going to need to be some amount of innovation around the types, the formats that people play, but that's subject to what's popular, so that's hard. But it is still a tool that they have. I don't think killing like a poker dream, kind of, so to speak. I mean, like, so many players, like, they play to climb. If there's no ability to climb, then there's no like, for a
That's
lot
the
of people, the
point.
incentive to play goes away.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I don't think that you can have it to where you kill all poker, all professional poker players, and at the same time preserve the game. I think the game goes away. So you have to balance that. And like, I think the party poker trying to remove HUDs, for example, or like steps in those types of directions, like, those are things. I'm not saying it's a great idea or it's a bad idea. I'm not saying it's support. Like, there are pros and cons, I think, in both directions. But I think those are the types of steps you can take where you're trying to mitigate the types of edge that people have. You're trying to narrow, like, maybe it's okay for people who work super hard to win, but like, you have to work super hard if you want to do it, because we're going to make it really hard on you. And by shrinking the number of professional players, like, you reduce the edge that they have. You kind of prolong the game. I think that's great. I think it's tough, though. I mean, like, I do think innovation is the easiest way, but again, it's subject to what's popular, right? So that's hard.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, it takes a long time to figure stuff out. I mean, I've been studying no limit hold'em, like Chippy V, no limit hold'em, for a long time, particularly tournament poker, like, staggered stack depths, where you start with like 100 big blinds and work your way down to 5. And I don't have it all figured out yet. I don't have it all figured out yet. So, but I would say that, like, just trying to like hike the rake. And I'm a professional player, but like, I just don't. It doesn't strategically, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, hike the rake, make it so it's impossible to play professionally. Seems like you kill the game to me.
Yeah. Well, I think the 3-step pyramid, the way I think about it now, is like the platform is very important. Like, where we play, how we play, the infrastructure, right? And the pool of average players is, to me, the most important. Right. They're like, there is nothing without people that want to play poker. I think the poker pro is the dream in that equation. If you take away the poker pro, you take away the dream, and the pyramid falls. There needs to be the dream, and the percentage is up for debate, hotly contested in the poker world. But
sure. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, to me, like, does there need to be 2,000 pros, or can they raise the hurdle to where, like, there's only 500? Right. And I'm not trying to say this, like, the poker pros are going to, like, come kill me for saying that. But like, if you raise the bar of like what's required, I mean, like, that's one way of dealing with the problem, because you'll just have less people taking money out of the games. Right. And like, how do you do that? I don't know. I mean, like, they can think about it. Obviously, rake is one, like reducing incentives. People who are like net depositors qualify for bonuses, algorithmically, however they work it internally in their systems. People who are net depositors, like, they get deposit bonuses like at a much quicker rate. People who are like net withdrawals get lower rake back percentages. I mean, like, I know that some sites are already doing things like that, I think, but like, those are steps that like make some sense, making it, I don't know, it's hard. I don't think the rake overall should go up. I think the redistribution of how the rake is returned to the overall player pool should shift away from professional players towards recreational players. I think that some sites, like I said, are doing that. And again, some people are gonna be like, more rake, you're just saying more rake's better. I'm like, I'm not saying more rake is better. I'm just saying, like, the distribution should probably be thought about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, to me, that there's a bunch of ways to solve the problem. And to me, redistribution of the rake, as well as innovation, is so much better and so much more interesting and hopeful for our game than just increasing prices. Which is like, it's the way to.
That seems like a nail in a coffin kind of thing.
Yeah. It's, I mean, you're going to get short-term balance
treating
sheets.
it like a cash cow.
Yeah.
You hike the rake, pull the money out, and then the game dies. So.
All right. So we have lots of sound bites in there.
Super optimistic right there.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the things you've done around the game other than just playing yourself. So I guess let's start with staking, because that's how I came to know you. Was running a stable of players. So could you give like an introduction to what staking is, and then also your entry into that world and how it all started?
Sure. So what staking is in my experience, is like when you make a little bit of money playing poker and you give that to your friends, essentially when you're first starting out. You give that to your friends and they start playing poker on your behalf with your money, and you take 100% of the losses, and typically you're taking 50% of the profits. And normally you lose a bunch of money, and then you're done. So that's normally how staking goes.
I did that once. Yeah.
And yeah. So how I got into it is that's how I got into it. And over time, like I kind of stuck with it, and the process of doing it gets more refined, and you start staking people that aren't your friends. You stake people that you don't know that are capable winners, and you try to improve those players. To me, you have to stake. I know you've had Pads on the show, and Pads talked about like you have to be better than the people you stake almost, because like you have to have some way of evaluating them. And so that's actually been a big part of like me, like my, I don't want to say success, but like it's been a big part of like what drives me to get better at No Limit Hold'em in general, is the fact that I have a roster of guys, and it's a deep roster, who I need to be better than, and all of those guys want to win the maximum, right? Like all of those guys, almost all, like universally, they work hard, because if they didn't work hard, we wouldn't work with them. So like these guys are guys who work hard, who are smart, who want to play No Limit Hold'em full time, and my job is to be a lot better than all of them. And so if that changes, then I'm irrelevant, right? So like the pressure to stay good is very high. And yeah, so like that's, you stake people, you try to be better than they are. You coach them, because that'll make you more money if they play better. And yeah, I mean, like that's the gist of it is, it's a 50-50 deal. You take 100% of the downside, and you hope for the best. Lots of risk, lots of variance, lots of volatility, lots of swings.
Right. Okay. So leaving sort of like Twitch now aside, because we'll talk about it then in a second, but before
Sure.
Twitch, like how much of your mental energy was on your own playing, as opposed to like being better than your stakies so that you could help them get better and play for you? Like what was the split in your mind?
Oh man, that's tough. I mean, like that's a difficult way to divide it up. I don't know how to divide that, to chop that up. I mean, like when I was playing full time, it was really hard, right? So I was definitely like a workaholic. It was definitely like, you could argue it was unhealthy if you want to, but I mean, it was like, I would wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning to coach people. And because like they lived in some country that like where that was ideal for them. And at the same time, like I would be playing poker for 10 hours a day, some days like 11 or 12 hours, sometimes if it was like a really, really long day. So I was just like, I was playing all the time. I was studying all the time, trying to study whenever I could, coaching all the time. And I did that. Like, I didn't really respect weekends. So I just worked 7 days a week. My wife, like the frequency she could see me, I had to regulate, because the Supernova Elite was pretty demanding. So it was how much I worked. So I would see her once every 2 weeks. So like not all the time, but usually like starting after June or July, I would see her like once every 2 weeks, so that I could make sure that I stayed on pace with Supernova Elite.
That's wild, man.
And yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, it was just like relentless, like just like tons of volume. And my life's much more enjoyable and like softer. And I was enjoying it then, to be honest. I mean, like, because I mean, I was pouring everything I had into it, and it was fun. But I couldn't, like, that pace of the same stuff now would be like too much.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
what was driving you? Like, did you ever look internally as to like why you were working so hard? Was it to be the best? Was it about the dollars? Was it about the accomplishment? Like what?
No, it wasn't to be the best. So it wasn't like, which is what everybody else said. So like that's a very common answer. It's like, I want to be like better than everybody else. And that really wasn't it. I'm like BBZ, me, myself. Like, I'm not really super concerned with what other people are doing, which is something like people always ask me on the stream. Like, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about that guy? I don't have an opinion. I'm very like internally focused. So it was mostly about me, like trying to see how far I could take it, how far I could get. And then it was also about like kind of probably like the way that I grew up. There was just like a lot of, I guess like inconsistent, like the power getting shut off. Like when I'm doing my homework, the guy comes up and pulls the power out, and like my computer, I did have a computer, but like the computer crashes, and like I lose everything and I have to start all over. And like that happening kind of often and stuff. I had like different type of upbringing. And so making sure that I had enough money to like provide myself with stability was really important. And even like when I got to like when I first hit 7 figures, I should have been able to be like, okay, this is enough. Like this is like, you have stability, but like it doesn't really register. So like it just kept going at the same pace until I had like a bit more. And then I started to like, why are you working so hard, man? Like you can slow down.
Yeah.
And then, then I did start to slow down. The other thing too about poker is that there's no anybody that tells you that this is enough, right? Like if you have a job, you work 40 hours a week, your boss tells you go home. I mean, like, you work 8 hours a day. He's like, go home. You're like, I want overtime. And it's like, it's too expensive. Go home, right?
Yeah,
and when you play poker, if you want to work, like if you want to play for 24 hours in a row, like no one's going to tell you can't do it. So go ahead. If you want to play for 16 hours in a row and then go to sleep and wake up and play 16 hours in a row, like no one's going to say that that's like maybe not the greatest idea. You're just able to do it. And so some people did. I was one of them. So, like there were like moldy onions, like as far as guys that played the same format, there were a lot of guys that were just playing like ridiculous, Josh, Slayer fan. Like there's just tons of guys, AYs, who just put in obscene hours. Like you would just sign in and like they were there and you're just like, what's wrong with you? And like, I work all the time, but like, you're always on. And like Shablin Vlad, like there's just some of these guys like who are just like always there. And like it was just like the way it was. I don't know. And it almost made it easier because at high stakes, there were a number of guys who were just always there. And it's like a pressure to be like, all right, I gotta always be there too. Like if I'm gonna be playing with you, I gotta always be there.
You're here, so, I'm here. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'll battle you. Yeah. That's good, man. The thing on hours that you hit home, I think it's something that, I mean, is it's like a big thing for poker players, not even just online, live too. Like the hours of work and managing life around poker, it seems to be almost one of the biggest faltering points of a professional poker player, and definitely of a streamer as well. So I wanted to get into Twitch a little bit because you're streaming on Twitch, you're blowing up, you're doing great things, and I wanted to ask your experience in terms of like how you feel about broadcasting so far, because it's an interesting journey. So take us through the Twitch sort of beginning.
The Twitch beginning?
Yeah.
Well, the beginning actually,
Why?
it was why? Yeah. So I mean, we first started out with the idea of trying to leverage what we have. So I'm a big believer in leverage, like trying to use the same thing and squeeze as much value out of the same hour as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. That's like a very good recipe for building. So with respect to BBZ, like we have these seminars, like essentially they're seminars. They weren't seminars before. They were just coaching sessions for my stable, right? Mm-hmm. And so we would do them 5 days a week, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific. We still do them. And it was just for the guys that I staked. That was it. And it was like, well, we could probably provide public access to them. And people because we had people that we had staked that were like, I want to still get the coaching, but I've been really successful with you or like whatever. And I've got, I don't need it. I don't need you to stake me anymore. I can play on my own. I've got $500,000. So, but I want you to coach me still. So like, how do we work that out? And I never really did. I would just kind of be like, I don't really do that. Like if I'm not staking you, adios. And, that was really inefficient, right? And so like obviously over time, naturally you try to fix that. And so like what we did to try to fix that was we provided access to those same seminars for $500 a month. And so people who had been attending them for maybe a year or for years or for whatever 6 months, but then had 2 binks in a row, they won the Sunday Million twice or something. If they wanted to continue attending those sessions, they now had a way to do it, right, at $500 a month. And didn't take us any work, right? We could just leverage the sessions we're already making into more revenue, so it was great. And then it was like, well, how do we grow this? Because this is actually working. So like, can we grow it? And so we hired like a marketing team, and the marketing team was like, dude, you need to stream. And that was like kind of the first part. And I was like, I don't really want to stream, man. Like, I don't know anything about streaming. Like streaming is not my thing. I don't like, at the time I didn't know any like really, really high stakes regs that were like doing what I was doing that were streaming. So I was like, it's not for me, man. It's for somebody else. And, we kept kind of circling back around because we weren't really being very successful with the marketing strategy. And they were like, well, if we'd be successful if you just stream. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to stream. Like, I don't know anything about it. It's not my thing, man. I don't want to do it. And if I do it, right, there's this appreciation that I have for like the way that it works, which is it's kind of WTA. Like it's kind of winner take all. So like if you want to do it, you kind of have to go like really, like was my impression at least too at the time. It was like you have to go really hard, and like there's going to be, it's like playing poker. Like there's going to be people who are willing to put in like 7 days a week, 365, and like those people are going to build huge audiences. And if you're just going to like be this part-time robot, like it ain't going to happen for you. So I was like, I don't want to take that on. I've escaped that already. I've already done that kind of workload. I don't want that again. And I got convinced that I wouldn't have to do it quite like that, which is like I'm only streaming like between 1 and 3 days a week. And so I was like, all right, fine, we'll give it a shot. So they set it all up, gave it a shot, and ended up being like, the feedback initially was pretty good. So we kept running with it, and like now we're here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took me some convincing. It wasn't my idea.
Right.
I definitely don't get credit for me streaming. Like when you streaming was not my idea, not at all. I was very resistant and like hesitant to start.
Well, and so, I mean, seeing you out there, it's really fun because you play like the biggest stuff. Like you'll play the 5K big game on Party Poker, which it's just fun to watch a $5,000 tournament. So that's something that the smaller streamers or the streamers that play smaller stakes, you're just like, oh damn, he's playing the 5K today. Like I have no chance. like I'm just gonna give as much enthusiasm as I can into this 320 knockout. But like your non-core community is gonna be dragged in. So I think that's a really great thing that you have on your side. But then also, dude, like your talent in being able to coach people, like you've done it for so long, so the way that you speak about spots is so valuable. So I know all of us in Party TeamOnline, as soon as we saw you, we're like, oh yeah, that's good, like we should talk to him.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, so no, I'm really looking forward to
I've been doing it for a while. I've been talking to people about how I think for a while, so like it's it wasn't as hard, just because like what I would have like streaming sessions occasionally where like I play and I try to explain my thought process to my guys. So I was a little bit used to having like 50 people, which is not the same thing as having 2,500 people, which occasionally happens when I'm streaming. But I thought that I'd be able to do it, and I did think I could almost cheat, because I do think it's almost like cheating if like you said, you're trying, like you're a better streamer than me. You've been doing it for longer. You've got your skill set, and there's tons of guys like that are just better at this format than me. But like, I'm going to play the 5K today, so I'm going to cheat. I mean, I'm going to steal people because of that. So that was a part of why I was willing to start and try it. I was like, oh, maybe because I can just play big, like maybe that'll be enough.
Yeah, like there's so many people that get protective of their Twitch space and their Twitch ecosphere, and they take everything as like, this is against me or this isn't fair. And I just think it's the wrong approach. Like everyone's got tools in the shed, Like there's always controversy about the way people dress on Twitch even, right? And people will blame people for like looking hot. It's like, listen, man, they're allowed to be hot. They're fine with that. You might not be hot, but you have other aspects, right? So don't complain about the other things that entice people to watch other channels. Just make yours better so they'd rather watch you.
Focus on you.
That's That's the thing, man.
That's all you can do anyways. That's all you can do. Like,
yeah.
That's it. You can't say like, oh, don't dress sexy or something. I mean, like if someone just like looks good, that's their thing.
Someone's gonna dress up on Twitch, and they're gonna be more attractive than me and you. That's just the way it is, Jordan. I'm breaking news right now.
I'll be all right with it.
Yeah, that's fine. So just like figure out how to get into the 5Ks instead, or adjust your schedule. I think it's it is a competitive world out there. Like all the streamers are generally friendly. I don't think there's very many strong beefs, but like everyone is also trying to figure out how to get those numbers and like how to grow their audience. It's just that's the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly that's everything. Like everyone's trying to compete, and people are going to come up with different ways to. That's the thing. Like people are always going to come up with ways to like try to get into that spot if you've got a good spot, right? And so you've got to constantly be coming up with new strategies, even if you're at the top. Like even if you've been very successful, if you're not relentlessly coming up with new ideas, you should just stop, particularly if you're like taking risk, like which streamers, anybody who's playing poker is putting capital at risk, right? So like if you're going to put capital at risk, you better bring a lot of energy, because someone's going to take your spot, man. Someone's going to take your spot if you're just coasting. Not allowed to coast.
I like
it's cool
this.
like that. It's fun like that.
Exactly. It is I'm not drawing any parallels. I just like, that call into the universe. I like it. I see it. So one more question on Twitch. Like, did it surprise you in any way? Is there anything about streaming that was a different experience for you personally, or like, yeah?
Yeah, it was surprising. I would definitely say that streaming was surprising. It was surprising how much more energy it took, because all of this, like I was trying to make the sessions. You try to make the sessions last longer, right? Like you build with streaming, so you start with 0. And then like by the end of the day, like for me, like if I'm having a good run, I might get to today, I might get to like 3K plus, but like yesterday I had 2,000 on the stream. It was a Monday, so it's gonna be less people. And so like that takes time, right? Like you have to build it takes time. So the thing is like when you get down to when you start, so normally during a session, as it winds down, if it's going really badly, you can just stop. It's fine. But if you have 15, if you just get to like, or if you think like your numbers are growing really quickly and you're kind of like, I watch it and I'll see like how quickly we're picking things up, and we're getting to a point where like things are really progressing nicely, where I have a good number of people on the stream, I'm going to try to keep it going, right? Like I'm not going to just get to 1,000 people and just be like, oh, like I'm running bad, I'll just stop. Which, if you're just playing, you can do that. But if you're, as soon as you introduce streaming, like you're going to stretch it out. And so trying to like play, talk to people, come up with ways to like push a stream that might be going bad in terms of the way the playing is going, but it's going really well in terms of the way my numbers look for the stream, coming up with new games to play, making sure that I'm being entertaining, like that's a lot more energy to keep that going. Because again, like maybe you're getting smashed and you're just like, I don't want to do this, man. I don't want to do this. Right. Like I'm losing. I just want to stop. But again, like the stream just kind of like, it's like, I really shouldn't stop. Like I should really keep going. I should really find something to play. I should really find see if I can add maybe some 215s or some 500s if I can't find a 1K, or like maybe I'll play, the fast forward game, right? Maybe I'll introduce that. Maybe I'll play like 6-max hypers and play 500s and 1Ks. And like all of a sudden I'm playing like, 2 or 3 formats at like really high stakes and streaming and talking and like trying to play a bubble properly. Like, like that gets to be, that challenge is just not the same as playing. If you're just playing, it's just not. And so it's tiring. And so like that was surprising for sure. Also, I was like, when I first started doing it, I was super nervous. And so I couldn't eat. I've only told my like really close friends this, but with like my first few streams, so I'm gonna tell everybody, but like my first few streams, I couldn't eat. And when I was playing, and I ended up having like a really long session, I went deep. It was a great experience from the playing perspective. I can't remember if it was when I took second in the big game for like 100,000 or something. It might've been then, but I didn't eat that whole session. It was like 12, 13, 14-hour session, something like that. And like, I just crashed, like almost was like, I was like in tears after the session was over. Cause like my blood sugars probably just like went through the floor. I was like surviving off coffee the entire time. And it was just like, just a different experience. It's just not the same. It's just not the same. So it's like how intense it can be is just different.
Yeah,
took getting used to for sure.
I don't know if I could go back to just ever playing normal poker, because it is a different drug, man. When you have like 3,000 people sweating your turn card, whether it's for like 3,000 or 30K, it's just more meaningful, especially when the money starts to wear off like 8, 9, 10 years into a career. Like that doesn't change you, but it's hard to not be enthused when there's 1,000 people enthused for you in a spot. Exactly. So it's like, I know Tonk has talked about this before, like reinvigorating his passion to grind. I think there's potential for that. If there's any burnt out poker pros out there, like give it a go. There's space in the listing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, like I think streaming, it's a different grind, right? So like if you're bored, I mean, it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're perfectly right as well. Like hour 8 is sometimes 3 times more valuable than hour 1. So it's just like, you really length is important. But then you run into that problem you talked about a little bit earlier in your life, where it's just like no one tells you to stop. So you're going to burn yourself out and crash and just like be a flash in the pan with a 1-year career if you don't modulate that as well. So it's a really interesting, like you see all sorts of streamers that feel guilty about taking days off, and like you can see it in their social media, and it's just, it can be a little toxic that way. So it's a weird world, man. I could talk about it all day forever. I just want to end the conversation here with like some more overarching goals in regards to what are you working towards now in your career, and like in the next 10 years, what's the future for BBZ?
10 years is a long time, man. I didn't predict the iPhone, so I'm not gonna, 10 years before the iPhone, I had no hip. So like, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing in 10 years. But as far as like goals for BBZ, mostly it's just like execution. That's the big thing. I recognize that like streaming is really important for what I'm doing right now. So like for growing, so we've got like CFPs, which we've introduced, coaching for profit. Those are people who want us to coach them but don't want to stake. We've got the seminars, which people can subscribe to. All of those different things, staking, etc. And PartyPoker now, and all of that kind of like growing all of those things hinges on like me being really good at No Limit Hold'em, and me streaming a lot and putting in the volume, right? So for the most part, my goals are just about execution. I think, I think most people know, like in most situations, like a lot of people know what to do. The problem is almost always just execution, right? And I just need to execute. I just need to go out and do it. I need to make sure I'm streaming enough. I need to make sure that I'm, that I keep doing all the things I need to do. But there's no like outlandish thing that I need to do that's like way over there that's impossible. I just need to do those like kind of little things and like one stream at a time. But at the end of the year, it needs to be a lot of streams, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Staying in the moment is helpful instead of projecting like I tend to do into the future. But yeah, man. No, I appreciate you taking the time today. Super excited to have you on the team. I know we will be, all of us will be hosting your community and vice versa. So you guys will get to know Jordan if you watch it all on Twitch, and I highly recommend it. One of the best players that has ever played poker on Twitch. Very good at the game, plays high stakes, so you won't regret checking him out. Where can people keep in contact other than Twitch? Are you anywhere else? Is that just the central contact?
We've got a BBZ Discord. You can find it on the stream. We've got the YouTube BBZ Coaching. So you go to YouTube, just type in BBZ Coaching, will pop up. We've got a website, bbzstaking.com. Instagram, BBZ Staking. Twitter, BBZ Staking. I'm trying to think. We got a lot of handles, but
right.
The Twitch is like, if you're just trying to check out the stream and just see how things go, like Twitch is a great way to get introduced to us. Like if you have questions, or we can answer them. If you're inquiring about anything related to me, like there will be a team of people even that will help you if I'm like in the moment or something and I'm playing and I miss it. So twitch.tv/BigBluffSinks is the best place to find me for sure.
Perfect, man. Great. Thanks for taking the time.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Big thanks to Jordan again for coming on the podcast and having a conversation with me. Check him out on Twitch, you guys. Incredible player. You won't regret it. It's going to be a lot of fun watching him play some of the biggest tournaments on Party Poker this year. Now let's get into our JS Poker Hero competition here, where someone in the podcast represents us and takes us forward into the victory of a KO series or something like that. Some big tournament, okay? So basically, we do a contest every week, and I'm going to report the winner of this past week's competition. So you had to guess what my finish position was going to be in the Mixed Mags 6-4 Fast in the KO series. I am sad to report I finished 64th place, and it wasn't a very big field. I was out quickly, which means Lazar Kalabashvili, Twitter, Lazar Kalabash1, won the guess with a 56th place. I am slightly hurt that you didn't have more confidence in me, but you were right. So I should learn from this. Damian McAley guessed 69th, but Twitter says he made this guess after 10 p.m., so the tournament was already in play. Damon, you can't be guessing after the tournament has started, my friend, okay? So enter again this week, and you'll have a better chance. This week's competition, with Party Poker launching cash game leaderboards this week, we want to hear your best online Party Poker cash game story. That's right. Let us know your hands. I don't want this to be a bad beat competition because I know immediately all of you were typing on the keyboards, ready to go. Send in your bad beats. That's not what I want. I want your best Party Poker online cash game story. Okay? We're going to pick a winner, and you're going to win a ticket. What are you going to win this week? Let me tell you. They didn't tell me what you're going to win this week. So you know what? I'm going to pick a tournament. Let me load it up. Let me load up the lobby here. Let me pick something for you. So we got the KO series going on. Of course, it's going to be a KO series event because I'm going to be playing these on Sunday. So I'd love to be in the same event as you. KO series. And it's going to be for Sunday. How about the $320 main event? That's right. I bumped up the prize to $320 from $215. Didn't even get approval. That's $105. Probably coming out of my account by the end of the day. It's all right. I like you guys. Thanks for taking the time and listening to the podcast. So, to enter this week's competition, hashtag JS Poker Hero. Enter with your best Party Poker cash game story. By the time this tournament is going on Sunday, actually, I'm going to cut it off Saturday. Saturday night at 8 p.m. UK is the cutoff for when you can win this ticket, okay? So please pass along your online cash game stories from Party Poker and hashtag JS Poker Hero. That's it for the show this week. Just so everyone knows, you are able to listen to the show on Spotify or on iTunes. It's a nice listing, and they've got some nice logo and stuff. I like it. I'm proud of this thing, man. We're in the podcast listings. This is a real show.
And of course, you can also watch the video version on YouTube on the Party Poker Live YouTube channel. It's released to my PokerStaples YouTube channel, but usually delayed a few days, so it's not the cutting edge source of information for this. Spotify, iTunes, Party Poker Live YouTube is where you can check out the show. Make sure you drop a subscribe on those platforms so that we can get the hype going a little bit, and maybe a few people will listen to this thing from those places. That's going to be it for me this week. Thank you all so much for listening/watching. But until next time, we'll see you later.